Okay, let's move on to night number 3, where we will talk about discarding other people's tasks. In short, we should learn to mind our own business. So we spoke about the 3 types of tasks, right? Tasks of work, tasks of love, and tasks of friendship. So when we talk about tasks, it is more important that there is a separation of tasks. Okay, this is extremely important because this is one of the main reasons why there are relationship issues. Okay, we start to intrude on other people's tasks, or other people intrude on our tasks. Okay, so to give you a very simple example, so we have this book club. So my task is to, just a second, I'm just adding all the people back. So my task is to share the summary of the book. Okay, whether listening, note taking, whether you're focused on this class session or whether you are doing something else, whether you're processing the information, all these are, those are not my tasks. Okay, so I should not be intruding on your tasks. So whether you keep your video on or video off, these are things that I should be least bothered about. Okay, so my task is to make sure that I convey the book summary, in the best possible way I can. So that is where my task ends. Okay, so the author also talks about the task between a parent and a child. So a child has homework. Whose task it is to complete? It is the responsibility of the child. But what we do is that we keep nagging, we keep pushing the child to finish the homework. Okay, what happens is that over a period of time, the child will not start to take responsibility. Okay, so this is one other way of intruding on other people's tasks. So first and foremost, discard other people's tasks, and all interpersonal relationship issues are caused when we intrude on other people's tasks or having one's own tasks intruded upon. So what this leads to is that we keep worrying about others. We keep worrying about the actions taken or inactions by others, right? So then our life becomes more heavy, full of hardship. We start to worry about the future. So remember the 3 principles we discussed on Adlerian psychology. Life is simple and we make it complicated. This is one of the ways by which we make it complicated, because we start intruding on other people's tasks. Okay, so the key to freedom. So one way is to ignore other people's tasks, but there are also certain other ways where we could experience freedom. The first and foremost is that deny the desire for recognition from others. Okay, so why do we seek recognition? Because of our conditioning, because of the reward and punishment way of education. Okay, and what this leads is that even in our adulthood, we start to satisfy other people's expectations. We keep looking for recognition, we keep looking for appreciation, and when we do that, we cannot satisfy everybody, right? Even if you do one thing right, maybe one person will appreciate you, but the other person will say you haven't done this. So it is nearly impossible to meet everybody's expectations. So do not live to satisfy other people's expectations, is what the author says. And when we keep looking for this recognition, what happens is that we mold ourselves into being somebody, to be this kind of person that other people or the society expects you to be. Okay, so when we have this desire for recognition, it will make us unfree. Desire for recognition makes you unfree. Like, what a powerful statement it is, isn't it? So, and from where does this desire for recognition comes from? Because we don't want to be disliked by anyone. We want to be appreciated. We want to be valued by everyone, right? It is a natural human need, no doubt about that. But what it could lead is that we would start to look for recognition from every input source. Okay. So I was just thinking, when I was thinking about this particular statement on desire for recognition, if there is a dislike button on Instagram, will we have the courage to share or post as much as I'm doing right now? Will I have that courage? If there is a dislike button, right? Something to think about. So what other people think when they see you is the task of other people, and it's not something that you have any control over. So let's say you you step out, there'll be so many judgments. What they think of you, what they feel about you is none of your task. It is that person's task. So that is something that you have no control over. So now the author comes to this point about real freedom. Real freedom is being disliked by other people. I mean, this is like, such mind-blowing, isn't it? Where would we even have that thought about it's okay to be disliked by other people? Not at all. We want to be liked by everyone. Okay, but the author says it puts us in a sort of disrupts our freedom. Okay, so real freedom is that there should be some people who dislike you. So if there are few people who dislike you, it is a sign that you live in accordance with your own principles. Okay, so don't be afraid to be disliked. So this is where the author comes to this, the title of the book, The Courage to be Disliked. Okay, so how do we get that courage? We need to live our life according to our own principles. Don't look for recognition from others. Don't look for appreciation from others. And if we start looking for it in every possible channels, and then we become someone else. We become somebody who the society wants us to be, whereas we may not want to proceed in that direction. Okay. So when we start to discard other people's tasks, eventually, step by step, as you saw, it will lead us to having the freedom, having the courage to be disliked, and then we experience a sense of real freedom. Okay. Now we move on to night number 4, where they talk about how we embrace this feeling of community. Okay. So we spoke about how we should start to see everyone as comrades. Okay. Where we don't think of everybody else as rivals or enemies to be defeated, where we see everybody as comrades, where we are all working together. Okay. So when we have this feeling, then we feel a sense of refuge in a community. Okay. So community doesn't mean that it is, a neighborhood, or it is your school, or it is your college, or it is your workplace. The author says that community it's literally everything and anything in the universe, even plants, animals, inanimate objects, all those can be part of your community. Okay. Many times what we do is that when we are closely tied to a community, let's say somebody is like a workaholic, he works, day and night in his office, all he knows is his workplace, and he doesn't have any other community. What happens is that for some reason, suddenly there is a layoff, and he got fired, and he comes out of this job, and he doesn't know what else to do. He doesn't have anybody else to depend on. He doesn't have that sense of refuge in any other community. So that is why the author says that take the time to build different communities, not focus on one, but different communities, and expand your scope. Okay, it is everything and anything in the universe that can be your community. Okay, so what this leads is that we slowly move towards concern for others. We move from a feeling of attachment to self, from a self-interest to social interest. Okay, so the self-centric acts that we typically do is that desire for recognition is a self-centric act, interfering in others' tasks, and worrying about how others think of you, how others look at you. All these are self-centric acts, and intruding on other people's tasks and forcing them to live up to your expectations. These are all self-centric tasks. So first and foremost, we need to understand that we are not the center of the world. Okay. We are a part of a community and we are not the center of that community. Okay. So in order to make sure that we feel a sense of belonging in that community, there is something else that we need to do instead of being self-centric. So sense of belonging comes through one's own efforts. Okay, what is the effort that you put? Let's say you are part of a community. What is the effort that you contribute to that community, right? So, for example, even a simple choice like I'm going to buy local brands, that impacts so many other people, right? So you're contributing, let's say you're buying from a local weaver. You're contributing to the weaver's family. You're contributing to the people who are working within that weaver community, right? So your choice, everyday choice, it helps you cultivate belonging in different communities. Every choice helps us to become a part of a community or contribute to it through our own efforts. And whenever we are being inside a community, we need to think of building a horizontal relationship. Okay. So there is a horizontal relationship and a vertical relationship. Typically, we get into a vertical relationship, a hierarchical one, where we think that we are superior, we can boss everybody around, or we think that we have feelings of inferiority. Okay. Where we start to look up to someone, but at the same time, we feel, oh, I'm not like this person, or I'm not, I'm not yet there, right? So these are the sort of issues that come up when we are in a vertical relationship. And this gets even more reinforced when we start to praise or rebuke someone. Okay. So the author says that do not rebuke or praise. Okay. What happens when we praise somebody is that there is the aspect of passing a judgment that I am superior and I am now praising you, so you are inferior and you have no ability, right? So that is what happens when we praise somebody. It comes from a place of judgment. It comes from a place of superiority. That is why the author says, do not rebuke or do not praise. Even when it comes to a parent-child relationship, he says that do not praise children, because they start to think that, okay, now my parent has praised me, so he is coming from a place of superiority. He is above me and I am like, looking up to him or her. And now the same sort of expectation keeps coming up throughout their life, where they start looking for appreciation from their teachers, start looking for appreciation from their bosses, and so on. So the author says that do not rebuke or praise, but instead offer more words of gratitude and respect. So if a child does contributes to the chores in the house, do not praise, do not say good job. Instead, say thank you. Okay. And the youth asks a very relevant question from in this regard. What if the child needs help? Like we spoke about not intruding on somebody's tasks, right? What if the child needs help in his homework? Would you not help? Would you just let the child take over and complete the homework on his own? But what the author says is that if you want to contribute to other people's tasks, do not contribute from a place of intervention, but more from an assistance or encouragement. Okay. So where you make yourself available, you tell the child that I am here to help you if you need any help, but but don't intervene in how they are progressing with their work. Okay. So this is one example he gives, where you make yourself available for assistance or encouragement, but don't intervene. There is a difference. So when we start to look at praise, when somebody is being praised, he doesn't feel worthy. Whereas when somebody feels grateful for your work, then you start to feel worthy. Okay. So when somebody feels worthy, then he feels that I am now beneficial to this community. So community could also be a family. Okay. A family unit is also a community, right? So if somebody contributes within that unit of family, and if he is if he is being thanked for, then he starts to feel worthy. Okay, he feels that he is now beneficial to this community, he is now able to contribute to this community. Okay, so this is very important when we talk about this community feeling. So only when there is a sense of contribution, only when he feels that he is worthy, he will know that, okay, now I am part of this community and I am benefiting it in some way. Okay, now then they move on to the final night, where they talk about how to live in earnest in the here and now. Okay, so we spoke about how self-consciousness, where we start to think about other people's notion of you, how they think of you, how they, what are the sort of thoughts that others think about you. When we start to dwell too much on this, it stifles the self. Okay, so the author recommends that we practice self-acceptance and not self-affirmation. So self-affirmation is like when we tell ourselves, oh, I can do it, I am strong, I am powerful, I am capable, right? All these are self-affirmations. I'm sure we all do this sort of affirmations when we want to, boost our confidence. But what the author says is that instead of self-affirmation, practice self-acceptance, where you know that this is myself. Okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses or vulnerabilities. Accept one's incapable self as is, but you move forward with the courage that I can do whatever I can moving forward. Okay, so that is the nuance of self-acceptance. So self-affirmation is like, he gives an example where he says, let's say you take up an exam, and the exam you score really low marks. Okay, so if you are self-affirming, what you would say is that, oh, today has been a very unlucky day, or today the examiner set up a question paper when he was in a very bad mood, right? These are the sort of things that we say. Whereas when we go into the self-acceptance mode, we say, okay, maybe this question paper tested me today, this is what I could do given what I have prepared. Maybe I would prepare well and I will do better in the next exam, right? So this is what is the finer difference, because we always think self-affirmation is helpful, but what happens is that self-affirmation makes us think of things where we may not even be there yet. Okay. So the second point he talks about is having confidence in others. So when we talk about relationships require unconditional confidence. Okay. The opposite of confidence, he says, is doubt. So when we start any relationship with the mindset of a doubt, what happens is that we will start looking for evidences to prove our doubt. So that is why we always start with an unconditional confidence in any relationship, and then we, go and build it forward. The third point he talks about is contribution to others, where the question, what can I contribute to this community to make myself useful and to make myself valuable in this community? So the conclusion, remember we spoke about the point, everyone can be happy. So that happiness comes from the feeling of contribution. How can I contribute? And through that contribution, you experience a sense of happiness. So these are the 3 points to remember when we talk about embracing that community and also not being impacted by the community. Okay. So he finally says, embrace the courage to be normal. This is like very, very important in today's times, isn't it? We always want to, be somebody special. We want to project ourselves as somebody being special. We want our kids to be somebody who are special, because we are not able to accept our current normal self. This is something I read in one of J. Krishnamurti's books as well, where ambition is nothing but we are not able to accept who we are now, that we aim for something else, right? So it is a lack of courage, right? The courage to accept ourselves as is. The courage to be normal is what the author says. The courage to be someone as is. So we don't need to flaunt our superiority. We don't have to say that, oh, I have these skills, these qualities. We don't need to flaunt, but we can embrace that courage to be normal. This is something that we need to, I feel we need to teach our children as well, because this need to be someone special is becoming more and more ingrained in them at a very young age. So he says that in conclusion, when we talk about to living in here and now, he says life is nothing but a series of moments. Okay, our lives only exist in moments. Think about your past. You only remember certain moments, right? We only live in the here and now. So Eckhart Tolle, he talks about the same principle in his book, The Power of Now. So the now is all you have. The present is all you have. So in order to shine a spotlight on here and now, what you could do is that you could think about what I can do now, earnestly, what I can do at this moment in time. Okay. So he says, if you think about this, don't get into a very serious mindset. Oh, I have only this present. What can I do to make it too valuable? So don't get into that serious mindset. Instead, be earnest and try to do what you can at that moment. Okay. So they conclude by saying that there is no such thing as meaning in life. Okay. What is the meaning of life? That is what everybody searches for. So he says life in general has no meaning. You give whatever meaning that you assign to it, right? That is decided by you as an individual. So that is how they conclude this book. And we don't need to agree with whatever the author says, but these are some of the core principles or core takeaways that I found extremely valuable. I hope it was interesting to you as well. So do read the book, because the conversation is what the core essence is, because the kind of questions the youth asks and the kind of responses the philosopher gives back, that is what makes this book very interesting. So any thoughts or comments, questions?
Hi, Anuradha. Just a question. Based on your readings of this book, do you think it'll make sense for somebody who has already realized some of these points, or do you think it'll actually help somebody who is struggling with life? Say, I have to, recommend this book to somebody, right? I might understand some of these points just by myself because of my past experience or something, but I really want to help someone. So is this a book that can be taken by others who have not had this realization yet, some of these realizations yet?
um I think it would sometimes these revelations might be a bit more straightforward, or to your face sort of feel to it. So it depends on how the other person can take it. So um because see, things like deny trauma, I feel it is such a very powerful statement. And all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. These are like things I feel one has to be ready to absorb this information. So I'm not sure what personality this other person would have. So I think um, if, if we read this book with an open mind, then I feel it is more valuable. Because if we come with our own biases, and I think we need to be in a right frame of mind to receive this information from this book, because it can be triggering.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just feel like even though we realize some people might benefit from some of the points that different books talk about, you know for a fact that if you tell that as a recommendation to somebody else, they'll not take it in the same way, because they are not ready to accept it. It might be the fault of how it is presented in the book, and also the openness of the person. It's a two-way street, because
Yeah.
sometimes even if a person is not open, if you make the point properly, they'll be able to see it. But sometimes I feel like most of these self-help books, even though they have very invaluable insights, they're not actually for everybody. They're not actually helpful for the people who are supposed to, take those points.
Yes.
It's written for people who are already open to those ideas.
I agree, Pavitra. So for me, I always believe that a book arrives to somebody at the right time. So um, it if we give this book as a gift to somebody, maybe that person may not be ready at that point of time. Maybe after 2-3 years, when they pick it up, it might be more relevant to them. So that is the contradiction that you brought up, with regard to self-help books. Like even the book Subtle Art by Mark Manson, it can be triggering for some people, but some of the core points are, super valuable, like taking responsibility of your life irrespective of the circumstances. So these are things that, it has a very strong meaning to it, that you need to be in that right mindset to receive. Yeah, one other point about this book is that the font size is ridiculously small. So, I feel good books deserve better fonts. I don't know if it is because of the um, uh, publication in India, or it is worldwide, but uh, font size could have been better. All right, so I hope this was helpful. We'll connect again sometime next week. Thank you all. Have a great Sunday.